Now I come to another sutta, 2.4.6. Once the Exalted One was staying near Savatthi at Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's park. Now a great number of devas of tranquil mind came to visit the Exalted One, and on coming to him saluted the Exalted One and stood at one side. So standing, those devas said this to the Exalted One: Lord, here is this Venerable Sariputta at East Park in the terrace house of Migara's mother, that means Visakha, teaching the monks about the person who is fatted inwardly and the person fatted outwardly. The company is delighted. It were a good thing, Lord, if the Exalted One would pay a visit to the Venerable Sariputta out of compassion for him. The Exalted One consented by silence. Then, even as a strong man might straighten out his bent arm or draw in his arm stretched out, even so did the Exalted One vanish from Jeta Grove and appear in the presence of the Venerable Sariputta at East Park in the terrace house of Migara's mother. And the Venerable Sariputta saluted the Exalted One and sat down at one side. As he thus sat, the Exalted One said this to the Venerable Sariputta: Sariputta, a great number of devas of tranquil mind came to visit me. And he repeated their request. That is, they asked the Buddha to visit Venerable Sariputta. Then the Buddha continued. Now, Sariputta, those devas, though numbering 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 or 60, yet they all stood in a space not greater than that made by the point of a gimlet, and that without crowding each other. Now you may think, Sariputta, surely it was yonder, that means in another world, that those devas' minds must have been trained to this attainment, namely, that though numbering 10, 20, 30, up to 60, yet they all stood in a space no greater than that made by the point of a gimlet, and that without crowding each other. But that is not how you must regard it, Sariputta. It was just here, Sariputta, that their mind was trained to this attainment. Wherefore, Sariputta, thus must you train yourself. We will become tranquil in senses and tranquil in mind. That is how you must train yourself. Indeed, Sariputta, those who are thus tranquil in sense, tranquil in mind, their bodily action also will be tranquil, and the same for speech and thought. Thus must you train yourself. We will present to our fellows in the holy life tranquility of speech and tranquility of thought, a present of tranquility. That is how you must train yourself. Those wanderers of other views, Sariputta, who have not heard this Dhamma teaching are utterly discomforted. That's the end of the sutta. Here in this sutta, the Buddha is saying that these devas, heavenly beings, 60 of them stood in a space no greater than that made by the point of a gimlet. That means the point of a needle. All of them could stand at the point of a needle, such a small space, and without crowding each other. And the Buddha is saying that they did not train their mind to do this in the heaven world or somewhere. It was just here in the human plane. So this human plane, we can see, is a very important plane, because here we create a lot of karma. Whereas in the other planes, we are reaping the results of our karma mainly. If we go to the heavens, you find that the devas, they enjoy themselves so much, and they are not thinking of cultivating themselves. They only think of enjoying themselves, and that is quite natural when we are in such a place. And then the beings in the lower planes, in the woeful planes, they are just reaping the bad fruit, the fruit of the bad karma. So they don't create so much new karma as the human plane. That's why the human plane, it is a very, very good plane for us to be, because that's a place where we cultivate ourselves. So even for this, like this, if we have strength of mind, and then next time when we become devas, we might be able to do that. Now we come to 2.5.3. Buddha said, monks, there are these two companies. What two? The distinguished and the ignoble. And what, monks, is the ignoble company? Herein, monks, in whatsoever company the monks are luxurious, lax, taking the lead in backsliding, shirking the duty of seclusion, and make no effort to reach the unattained, to win the goal not won, to realize the unrealized. The generation that follows comes to fall along with their view. That generation also is luxurious, lax, taking the lead in backsliding, shirking the duty of seclusion, and make no effort to reach the unattained, to win the goal not won, to realize the unrealized. This company, monks, is called the ignoble. And what, monks, is the distinguished company? Herein, monks, in whatsoever company the senior monks are not luxurious, not lax, not taking the lead in backsliding, not shirking the duty of seclusion, and they make an effort to reach the unattained, to win the goal not won, to realize the unrealized. The generation that follows them comes to fall along with their view. That generation also is not luxurious, not lax, etc., and make an effort to realize the unrealized. This company, monks, is called the distinguished. These are the two companies, and of these two, the distinguished company has the preeminence. The Buddha here, you see, the Buddha is talking about companies of monks. He's not talking about a single monk, because during the Buddha's time, monks used to group together in big numbers, and they would travel from one monastery to another. They would not stay long in one place, because they're supposed to be homeless, and they go from one place to another. And so the Buddha praised those monks who practice to win the goal of the spiritual life. 2.5.6. Monks, there are these two companies. What two? The company trained in bluster. Here, speaking means speaking empty, arrogant words, not in discussion by inquiry. And the company trained in discussion by inquiry, not in speaking empty, arrogant words. And what, monks, is the company trained in speaking empty, arrogant words, not inquiry? Herein, monks, in whatsoever company the monks listen not to the discourses uttered by the Tathagata, discourses profound, deep in meaning, transcending the world, dealing with emptiness when they are recited. They lend not a ready ear to them, apply not to them a mind bent on understanding, consider not that those teachings are something to be learned by heart and mastered. But when those discourses made by poets, tricked out with fair-sounding phrases, discourses external to Dhamma, utterances of disciples, when such are recited, they listen thereto, lend a ready ear to them, apply to them a mind bent on understanding, and consider that those teachings are something to be learned by heart and mastered. And when they have mastered that teaching, they do not question each other about it, do not open up a discussion thus, what is this? What is the meaning of this? When they neither open up the unrevealed, nor explain the unexplained, nor dispel doubts on diverse doubtful points of Dhamma, such a company, monks, is called trained in speaking empty, arrogant words, not in inquiry. And what, monks, is the company trained in inquiry, not trained in speaking empty, arrogant words? Herein, monks, in whatsoever company the monks listen not to those discourses made by poets, tricked out with fair-sounding phrases, discourses external to Dhamma, utterances of disciples, but listen to those uttered by the Tathagata, discourses profound, deep in meaning, transcending the world, dealing with emptiness, and having mastered that, question each other about it, open up discussion thus, what is this? What is the meaning of this? When such open up the unrevealed, explain the unexplained, and dispel doubts on diverse doubtful points of Dhamma, such a company is called trained in inquiry, not in speaking empty, arrogant words. These are the two companies, and of these two, the latter has the preeminence. Here again, the Buddha is talking about two companies of monks. One is the monks who listen to the discourses of the Buddha, like the suttas here, like what you all are doing today, listen to the Buddha's words. Whereas the second company are those who listen to the utterances of disciples. What are these discourses that are the utterances of disciples? Utterances of disciples are meant to be the teachings of later monks, because the disciples here refers to the monk disciples of the Buddha. The Buddha could see that in the future the later monks would write some new books and all that. So there are some people, instead of studying the Buddha's discourses, they prefer to study the words of these other monks. And the Buddha does not encourage that. The other thing about this you find is that the Buddha encouraged us to discuss and inquire whatever teachings we come across. We should inquire and discuss about it. In the Mangala Sutta, it is called Dhamma Sakkacha, discussion of Dhamma. In the Samyutta Nikaya number 20, the 20th Samyutta, the Buddha warned that in the future people would not want to study and master the suttas, and because people are not interested in the suttas, instead of listening to the suttas, they'd rather listen to some other teachings, then it will cause the disappearance of the suttas. It is because the suttas are so important, that's why we take the trouble to read out these suttas, so that people can understand the real teachings of the Buddha. Some people would be surprised to learn that there's no such word as Tripitaka or Tipitaka spoken by the Buddha. Tipitaka was something that was coined later. In the suttas, we find the Buddha only mentions his teachings as Dhamma Vinaya. Dhamma are according to the Anguttara Nikaya, the Dhamma refers to the suttas. Suttas of the Buddha are called Dhamma, and Vinaya are the disciplinary rules for the monks. So the later books you find, like the commentaries and the Abhidhamma, there are certain contradictions. If you take the trouble to study the suttas in detail, then you will find that there are certain contradictions, with the Abhidhamma, with the commentaries. So it is only the earliest four Nikayas that there are no contradictions. And these earliest four Nikayas are accepted by everyone, including Mahayana, including Tibetan Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism, as being the original words of the Buddha. And there, if we study the four Nikayas, we find that there are no contradictions in them. They are very consistent. That is why, because these are not controversial books, that it is best, if we want to study, to depend on the four Nikayas, basically. In the Digha Nikaya number 26, the Buddha said, "Be a lamb unto yourselves. Be a refuge unto yourselves with no other refuge. Take the Dhamma as your lamb. Take the Dhamma as your refuge with no other refuge." So the Buddha is telling us that we take the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings, to be our master. And that's why we always take refuge with the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. That means the original teachings of the Buddha, his original teachings, and those Aryan disciples. But the trouble is, sometimes it's hard to tell which are the Aryan disciples. So it was decided in the second Sangha Council, about 100 years after the Buddha's passing away, that if any monk teaches anything that is consistent with the Buddha's teachings, then we listen to him. If they teach us anything that is inconsistent with the Buddha's teachings, that means in the suttas, we don't listen to them. That was decided 100 years after the Buddha's passing away. Now we come to 2.6.12. The Buddha said, "Monks, when in a dispute there is wordy warfare on both sides, with tenacity of view, malice of heart, sulkiness and discontent, one's personality is ruffled. Therefore, monks, it may be expected that this will conduce to protracted, bitter, contentious strife, and the monks will be unable to live at ease. But when in a dispute, there is wordy warfare on both sides, with tenacity of view, malice of heart, sulkiness and discontent, one's personality is not ruffled, then it may be expected that it will not conduce to protracted, bitter, contentious strife, and the monks will be able to live at ease. So here the Buddha is saying that what the Buddha is saying here concerns monks is also equally applicable to lay people. Namely, that if there's any wordy warfare, that means there's any quarrel or any dispute, we should not get emotionally upset, become emotionally ruffled. If we become emotionally ruffled or upset, then it will lead to a long, bitter strife. And whereas if you are not too emotionally involved, then that quarrel can end in not too long time. Sometimes when people practice mindfulness, if they don't have some samadhi, then when they become emotionally involved, then you find that all the mindfulness becomes lost. They're no more mindful. It's difficult to remain mindful when you become emotionally involved and emotionally upset. So you have to always practice this upekkha, this equanimity. Whatever happens in life, we try to remain equanimous. 2.10.1 The Buddha said, monks, there are these two fools. What two? He who shoulders a burden that does not befall him, and he who shirks a burden that befalls him. These are the two. And then 2.10.2 Monks, there are these two wise ones. What two? He who shoulders a burden that befalls him, and he who takes not up one that does not befall him. These are the two. So these two suttas, the Buddha is saying that what is our duty, what is our burden, we should take it up. What is not our burden, we should not take it up. So if a person carries a burden that is not his burden, is a fool. Or the burden that he should carry, like for example towards his family and all that, if he does not carry that duty, that burden, then he's a fool again. Now we come to 2.11.2 Monks, these two persons are hard to find in the world. What two? The one who is first to do a favor, and he who is grateful for what is done. These are the two persons hard to find in the world. That's the end of the sutta. You see, this person who is first to do a favor, few people would want to do a kind deed towards somebody unless he owes that person a kind deed. For a person to do a favor first means he is willing to do without any precondition. And that kind of person is rare to find. And then also a person who is grateful. Very often we find that we have done something for somebody, and later when we need a favor from him, he's forgotten that we have been kind to him before. So these are the two persons hard to find. Now 2.11.8 Monks, these two things are causes for the arising of wrong view. What two? Another's utterance and antara consideration, yoniso manasikara. 2.11.9 Monks, these two things are the causes for the arising of right view. What two? Another's utterance and thorough attention or thorough consideration. These are the two suttas. Now this right view, if a person has right view, then he is considered to be a sotapanna, one who has entered the stream and Arya. So here it is saying that to get right view, We just have to listen to another's utterance. That means that another's teaching. And then you consider it thoroughly. You pay close attention. You pay proper attention. You consider it, and you might be able to get right view. And for wrong view also, you hear, and then you don't consider properly, and you might end up with wrong view, especially if you hear wrong teaching, and you accept it because you don't have thorough attention or thorough consideration. So from this sutta, it appears like it is possible just from listening to the Dhamma to attain right view or enter the stream. And this seemed to have happened during the Buddha's time. Many people who came to listen to the Buddha teach the Dhamma, very soon after that the Buddha said that entered the stream. Now 2.12.1, the Buddha said, the believing monk, if he would aspire perfectly, should thus aspire. May I be like unto Sariputta and Moggallana. Monks, these are a sort of scale, these are a sort of measure for my disciples who are monks, namely Sariputta and Moggallana. Now the reason I'm reading this is again that there's a contradiction with the Mahayana Suttas. And the Buddha here is saying that all his monk disciples should be like Sariputta and Moggallana. Sariputta is supposed to have the highest wisdom, and Moggallana is the psychic power is the best. So it is not like in the Mahayana Sutras, which say that Sariputta did not understand the Buddha's teachings, that he had inferior wisdom and all that.